All right, hello everyone. Welcome to your first lecture from your textbook. This is going to go over Chapter 1. It's your introduction to what landscape management is. So hopefully you've already read Chapter 1. If not, I would pause the video and go ahead and read the chapter written by Mr. Hensley. And we are going to go ahead and get started. It's your introduction to what landscape management is. So what is landscape management? A lot of people have different terms for what they may think it is. You're going to hear people call it landscape maintenance. I prefer the term management. It gives us a sense of pride and it gives us a sense of responsibility that we're managers of the property instead of the maintenance people. So you'll see the textbook, they'll use the terms interchangeably, landscape management or landscape maintenance, but as a class we're going to use the term landscape management. And landscape management, it's a profession. It is a strong profession. It is a growing profession in the United States. It's also an art. When it comes to pruning and maintaining a property, you have artistic values that you're applying to the landscape. You want things to look good and look clean and neat. It's also a science because you've got the horticulture science background in your associate degree, in your certificates that you're taking. You're becoming horticulture scientist that knows the proper soil management, the proper fertility that's needed for turf. You're the scientist for the landscape property. And it's also a business, and this is probably one of the hardest things for people to comprehend, is that you're not only the expert when it comes to horticultural issues, but you also need to be a business manager. You need to know how to run your business if you choose to be self-employed in this industry. So the landscape manager, you need to know plants and turf. You guys are going to learn that here in your degree. You're going to identify and control pests. You're going to understand chemicals, soils, and plant nutrition. You're going to work with equipment. And you're also going to know how to grow an overexpanding list of plants. You're going to continue to learn plants, and you're going to continually learn. I learn every day about what I teach. There's not one person that knows every single thing about horticulture or landscape management. It's a growing business, and it's also an opportunity to expand your knowledge each and every day. For one, you're working with different materials, you're working with different properties, so it's a learning experience as you go. But there's a lot to know when to be a landscape manager. You're not in another industry where you're focusing on one thing that you do 8 hours a day, 5 days a week. As a landscape manager, you come across new situations each and every day on different properties. So again, you're continually learning. You're going to direct and supervise employees, a difficult thing to do. You're going to manage budgets and keep your business afloat. And you're going to deal with owners, clients, sales representatives, and people of that nature. You're going to deal with taxes, regulations, and government mandates. And then you're going to have to be a marketing genius. You're going to have to sell yourself to get these landscape management contracts. And that's what we're going to do when we do our landscape management plan. We're going to learn how to sell yourself, and we're going to learn how to represent your company and the knowledge that it has about that potential client's property. But this stuff right here, guys, your direction and supervision of employees, your budgets, and keeping that business going, keeping the cash flow to keep the doors open, it's going to be one of the toughest things that you're going to do. Again, you're all experts when you graduate in horticulture, but running the business is probably going to be one of the toughest things. That's what you're going to do on nights and weekends. You're going to work all day in the field, and you're going to come home and you're going to have to do paperwork. You're going to have to figure out where the money's at that you're making. So landscape management. There's many books about the nuts and bolts of plant and turf, but there's really no books that have treated landscape management as a business or even mentioned the word profit. I do think that the textbook that we're using for this class is a very good landscape management book, but it is one of the few. It's matter of fact, it's really the only one that I would want to use to teach this class. And then I combine this class with our marketing and management class to kind of help help learn how to operate the business. But it's again, many books and many resources on plants and turf, but actually landscape management is one. So I've developed this course from this textbook. We're implementing our landscape management plan, and you'll get a good knowledge of what it takes to run a landscape management business. Landscape managers must deal with developing and maintaining the landscape as the sum of all its parts. You're going to look at the property in detail. You're going to be the manager of the whole site. You're not just going to do one thing. So you're going to look at it in its entirety. Each aspect of maintaining a landscape is, it's related to each other. You're not going to spray chemicals, the day before you mow. I mean, all of this has to be brought in together, and we'll learn that as we go. I mean, you're going to want to wait a couple days. If you've sprayed weeds in the bed, in the turf, you don't want to mow it the very next day or the same day. You're going to want to do it on different days. So each aspect has to correlate with each other, and as the manager, you'll learn how to do that. So, the Chapter 1 introduction. Landscape management is the art, science, and skill employed by professionals who maintain all or any part of the exterior environment. This definition comes directly from your textbook, and it is a very good definition of what landscape management is. The art, the science, the skill employed by professionals who maintain all or any part of the exterior environment. And again, management versus maintenance. Management describes the responsibilities that we have. Maintenance is just, we're providing a maintenance service. But again, please use the word landscape management. It sets us up as a professional who is doing a professional job. The true landscape supervisor is a manager of people, time, equipment, and money. And probably people is going to be your toughest thing to manage. If you're running a large landscape management operation, there's going to be employees that call in sick. There's going to be bad weather. You're going to want to keep your people busy. So managing people is probably one of your most difficult challenges as being a business owner. Time, we all kind of struggle with time management skills, and you're just going to have to develop your own system when running your business. And then equipment and money. You're going to have to make sure that you have enough cash in the bank to make payroll every Friday. Earlier times, landscape management has been around, for quite a while. People used to start off as an apprentice, then they became a head gardener, and then moved on up to superintendent. Usually, gardeners work for the same estate their entire life. This may be someone who lives on site. My uncle was like a farm manager. He actually had a home on a larger farm, took care of the whole grounds and everything. So he was not only the gardener, but he maintained the horses and the cattle. But in larger estates or more historic states, the head gardeners would live on site, and a lot of times, their children would take over the work of the head gardener. So they would have children that would take over as being the head gardener for these large properties. And then Adam, of course, was the first landscape maintenance contractor to be fired off a job. A little humor there from the author of your textbook. But then we started to see a decline in private gardens in the U.S. and Europe in the 30s due to the Depression and inheritance tax. So people didn't really want to have such a large garden or private garden that needed to be maintained. During the Depression, they were more worried about feeding their family and finding a job. All right, so questions for thought. When do you think the landscape management industry was born as we know it? And then what helped get it started? Well, just think about it. We just talked about in the 30s, we had the Depression and stuff, and then inheritance tax. What happened shortly after the Depression? And then what helped get it started? So we had a major event right after the Depression. Well, answers. We had the post-war 1940s. Late 40s, people coming home. Our military was coming home. They were able to find jobs even while the troops were overseas. Their spouses were back home working in the military factories, building things. So we had discretionary income. But then also when the wars were over, we found jobs with better wages. We had financing opportunities through the GI Bill and government agencies. So the soldiers and sailors and Marines were coming home and were able to buy a home. And another good thing about that is that the soldier or our military personnel went to work, then the spouse got to stay home with the children. So that we had a one income family. We had enough money making it off one income that when the father came home, he wanted to go outside and throw baseball with his kids, or they wanted to have barbecues outside. So people started thinking about having better outdoor spaces. Within the landscape management industry, we had major growth in the 60s. The industry came of age. I mean, it was born. It was really took off. It went from toddler stage to adult age in the 70s and 80s. And it was all due to increases in income, leisure time, and recreational activities. Again, people came home, they wanted to spend time outside in their yard, they had a little extra money, and they were able to hire people to start taking care of their properties. And as we did start seeing, not so much with my childhood, I was lucky enough to have mom home with me most of the time, but when we started having two household incomes, we had more money, and then we had even less time. So when you had the mother and father both working, they had to come home, fix dinner, do other things around the house. They didn't really want to have time to take care of the outside. So they had that extra money. They started hiring people to get it done. All right, there's roughly 50 million acres of managed turf grass. That's a lot of grass, And the actual average national home loan is roughly a third of an acre. And these are my favorite types of properties to take care of. Again, I love the two-income family living in the postage stamp lots, third of an acre, similar house styles, front yard. It's pretty small, larger backyard. My favorite client to work for, guys, and we'll learn about that. I'll tell you about that a little bit more when we get more involved in the class. But then also, television added the boom of landscape management services. People turn on their TV and they start seeing things like yard crashers and other landscape redo shows, like Let's Renovate Your Landscape, or these TV shows that build these nice decks and nice water features and gardens in the back. Any given Saturday, you can see this on your local cable channels, and even during the week, they've got shows about how to do home improvements and garden renovations. People see that and they actually want it. So the TV has been a big boost for the landscape management industry. Franchises and consolidation. Aggressive lawn care companies, they started franchising in the 80s. I'm sure you guys have probably heard of U.S. Lawns, the Weed Man, things like that. These guys started franchising their services. And what that did was help people that really had no experience in the lawn and landscape management industry to purchase a franchise, get the training and the financing and the better priced equipment through their franchisor and purchasing the franchise. They helped people get in the industry without having to go to college and everything. And a lot of these people that bought these larger franchises were business people already, and they were implementing a system that was already proven to work. And then in the 90s, we started seeing acquisition of smaller firms by the larger firms. That's one way to grow your business. You're not guaranteed to keep the same amount of clients. Clients may decide to go with somebody else, but what they're doing is they're buying equipment, they're buying their existing accounts, and they're able to expand their own business by purchasing another smaller company. Then other service industries entered the landscape market by purchasing lawn care companies. So you started seeing like interior maintenance companies start purchasing lawn care or landscape management companies to expand their businesses for their existing clients. All right, here, I know your textbook talks about some of the larger companies and their volume, but let's use this, especially when it comes to test questions, because this changes yearly. So we have here the 2004 rank. I mean, it's early January 2015, so this really just came out not long ago. Can't remember what the book actually says was the largest, but now Valley Crest is number one. Well, actually in 2013, True Green companies were. So it does have the 2013 rankings. But right now, the largest landscape company was Valley Crest, and it had $992 million worth of revenue. And it has 11,200 employees. Then the Brickman Group. Guys, the Brickman Group's big here in the South. It's a great company to work for. So, if you're not interested in running your own business, I would recommend, applying and researching some of these companies for the positions they have. But it was number 3 in 2013. It moved up to number 2. True Green dropped to number 3. Then the Davey Tree Expert Company, has a strong lawn care side of the business there. MCOR, Scott Lawn Service, then True Green Land Care. Probably doing more of your installation work here. The True Green companies up here, probably more of your fertility side of that business. Then Bartlett Tree Expert, and then U.S. Loans. U.S. Loans sells franchises. Scott Lawn Service sells franchises. So if you are wanting to run your own business, I do recommend franchises. We were a part of the Christmas Decor franchise, which is a holiday and event decorating franchise. We had my parents owned that for 10 years and decided not to do that so much. Waited their 5 years after their non-compete, and they're still doing some holiday decorations, but not like we used to. But I do recommend franchise. Weedman's a franchise as well. So, but just take a look at their 2013 revenue. I mean, that's pretty good. And if you're able to pocket 10 or 20% of this and profit, you're doing pretty good. But managing upwards of 11,000 employees has got to be a difficult task. So what are some benefits to consolidate and or have an acquisition? Well, you have purchasing power. If you're part of a franchise, these franchisors can go to certain equipment vendors and say, I've got this many franchises out there. What's the best price you can give us for this piece of equipment? So you do have the purchasing power. System implementation. A lot of these guys have perfected their system. It's good to buy. We would have never been able to get involved with holiday lighting if we hadn't purchased our Christmas Decor franchise. For one, it was a system that they taught us that allowed us to do the business. We would have spent years coming up with a system on how to do this. Instead, we were able to purchase it and implement it right away. You can reduce overlapping of employees and equipment, especially if you purchase another smaller company. You're able to take their equipment and their employees and implement it into what you've already got. And then management training. You're able to train your managers through one of your franchisors, or send an employee of yours. If you've just purchased a smaller company and you've got your own system implemented, you can send one of your managers to run one of the companies that you've just purchased and implement your systems to run it the way you want. So it can be a good thing, guys, when you decide to go in to purchase in a franchise. Commercial landscapes. Now we're going to talk about actually some of the people that we work for. There's opportunities with shopping centers, apartment complexes, HOAs. I'm not a big fan of working for HOAs. The bad thing is they change presidents, every other year, or if not every year. So you're not actually working for that same person. And if you don't take care of You've always got people that's going to want a little extra work done, and then it can upset a neighbor. It can just get kind of nasty. It's not what I would rather work for. You can work for businesses, and you can actually work for property management firms. You can actually work for like a real estate broker who manages properties, and actually work for them and manage their properties. One thing that we got involved with, we never got involved with it on the landscape side, but we got involved with it on the snow and ice business. We were part of a larger organization called Northwest Snow Management. This was more or less I would say a landscape broker who went and solicited businesses from local banks, local restaurants, and it really took off. He started out in Charlotte, and he took care of quite a few banks, 2 local banks that were, southeastern and up through upstate in the north. He had to contract for all the snow removal. And what he did was hire subcontractors, and we became a subcontractor for him. And we had two banks that we worked here, and we had several of their locations. We went as far as Greensboro and west as Davie County during a snow event, taking care of 2 different banks. And we also had a couple, 2 different types of drugstores or pharmacies that we took care of. And then we had some fast food restaurants, so we took care of all of those locations during a snow or ice event. And what it was the broker was contacting all these people saying that he could handle all their properties. And what these companies liked having is, there's a snow event here in North Carolina. Their vice president of operations, whatever, can pick up the phone, make one phone call and say, hey, let's go ahead and push snow, or let's go ahead and put out ice melt. They're dealing with one person, and then from Northwest, we got the word, hey, go ahead and put out your pre-treats of salt, and then we're going to start pushing snow when we get an accumulation of 2 inches. So it was good. It was good for us. And they also did that for the landscape side. He would actually do the landscape work for several businesses, and then sub it out to different people. All right, there's roughly 19,000 golf courses, serving 26 to 35 million golfers. I'm sure this number has gone up since this text was wrote. And then a third of the cemeteries contract landscape managers out to take care of their properties. That would be a tough job. I just think about all the headstones and having to weed eat around those and things. But, somebody's got to do it. Public landscapes, we have parks, playgrounds, schools, highways, national and local government properties. I actually know of one guy that actually mows several of the military bases. His company takes care of it, and probably it's handled through the use of subcontractors, but he's doing a lot of work for the military, taking care of their bases. Highway mowing is a big thing, and a lot of this would work, especially females, minorities, getting that or getting your business certified as a minority-owned business. You're able to bid on projects like this, and to get the state mowing contract, to mow I-40 or something like that. That would be really beneficial to a young company starting out. I know Forsyth County school systems actually mow their own schools, but I would definitely look, if I was getting into mowing, at maybe bidding out some of the highway work, and then even looking at some of the government properties. Very good income with these. Bad thing about it, they do bid it out every year, and they're always looking for a cheaper price each year. So that's the one thing that would bother me with it. But I would definitely check it out. Technology, reliable. We have very reliable automated equipment. We have low cost and effective pesticides. And the good thing about it now is, the universities have really caught on to this. And then NC State here in North Carolina A&T, in Greensboro, my alma mater, have really got into the landscape research and testing these pesticides, testing these chemicals that we're putting out on our properties. So we can call up the extension either through NC State or North Carolina A&T State and get information about a lot of these products. And then also the private industry is doing research on the chemicals and pesticides that we're putting out. So we have all this technology that's available to us as landscape managers. Some legislative influence that we're seeing, they're wanting us to be more ecologically friendly, sustainable. Again, that's a word that I'm not too fond of. In my opinion, the horticulture profession has been sustainable all along. We implement practices to better help maintain the environment. We're planting trees, we're planting shrubs, we're installing healthy turf. To me, that's being sustainable without having to use the word sustainable. Best management practices. I know with the irrigation board, they've implemented a best management practices that we're to follow that actually helps the environment and helps you as a business owner. Integrated pest management. If you take HOR 164 with me, you're going to learn a lot about this, but this is actually controlling pests, not necessarily with the use of pesticides, but actually creating a threshold, developing a threshold, and monitoring these pests, and then taking action, and then using non-chemical ways to take care of the pest. And then we have noise and air control, or air quality. The government's mandated it in certain municipalities that you have to have a lower decibel backpack blowers, that you're not supposed to use 2-cycle gas. They want you to use a 4-cycle gas. So there's always going to be some legislative things that we're going to have to abide by, and especially from municipality to municipality. A lot of this stuff starts out on the West Coast, and then we start seeing it implemented our way. The future, landscape maintenance has and always will continue to have the least capital intensive and simplest requirements for entry into the business of all of horticulture. Because guys, all you've got to do is have a driver's license, be able to buy a truck. It's easy financing there. Your lawnmower dealers will be able to finance the mower. You'll be able to get a trailer, pretty inexpensive. So some of you may already have trucks, but to get into the business is not as financially intensive as starting maybe a greenhouse or a nursery, because you would need land for that. You would need to purchase greenhouses. You would need to purchase products. You may have to wait, several years before your nursery crop becomes eligible. Becomes developed enough to sell. You may have to wait 3 years on those plants that you just stepped up if you're a step-up nursery. But with lawn maintenance or landscape management, you can be in the business the next day with the truck, mower, and blower. You're good to go. Firms that once started out just mowing have added services to their business. What do you think some of these services are? You guys see it probably every day coming to school, the different trucks and the different equipment on their trucks. But one is landscape design and installation. Irrigation. A little tougher now with the irrigation license law. You have to be licensed to do irrigation, so probably not as much with that. Lawn care. And when I say lawn care, I'm talking about fertility apps. That's putting out fertilizer, spraying for weeds, plugging and seeding in the fall. That's your lawn care. And then again, holiday decorations. We were a management company, and we did do design build, and then we brought in the holiday decorations. And what that did was allow us to keep our employees year round, and it also advertised for our landscape business. We got a lot of new customers for our landscape business just off doing the Christmas decor. So worked out good for us. The only bad thing about having too many irons in the fire is you got to make sure you have good managers to manage each section. If I was starting brand new, again, I would definitely either start out one of two ways. If I wanted to mow, that's all I would do for the first few years. I would build up that mowing business to a point where I could have a manager manage everything and have a couple crews manage and do the work. Or I would start out in lawn care, where I'd just be doing fertility apps, and I would build that really, really strong and develop it where I could turn it over to somebody and then start something else. I wouldn't try to jump into everything in one day and do everything that's allowed. Perfect one thing and then move to something else. And then sustainable has become a common term used by the industry. I think we've already been sustainable. I think just by our nature of wanting to be outdoors and be in the environment, planting trees and stuff, we've been sustainable. What are some issues faced by management firms? Well, pesticides, for one, guys. We're always going to have to deal with legislation with that. There's going to be pesticides that may be taken off the market. We may have to look for newer, safer pesticides. Emission levels. They think with our lawnmowers and our weed eaters that we're just polluting the environment, polluting the atmosphere. Noise limitations. A lot of cities, I've heard, you can't mow before like 10 o'clock on Saturdays because that's people's hours of sleep on the weekend. You can't do anything till after 10. Then hours of operation. They may not even want you in the neighborhoods on a Saturday. So all this depends on where you're at. But then again, labor supply, and this is a big one. It's hard to find good employees and to retain these employees because they can always jump ship and go work for somebody else for a little bit more money, and that's probably your toughest issue. Dealing with employees and labor management is probably going to be one of your most difficult things when running your business. Minimum wage, we've got to make sure that we're paying our employees that minimum wage, and that's going to continue to increase, but that's okay. We want people to make good money. Healthcare, if you're running your own business, you're going to have to provide your clients with health insurance. You're going to have benefits to retain these employees. And then immigration, because the Hispanic workforce has been the primary labor force that we use in the industry. The immigration laws and stuff that are going to change and are changing now. We're going to have to, respond to that. And this is a good quote again from your textbook. The politicians, the tree huggers, and the public need to change their view of the landscape industry as water wasting, energy consuming, chemically dependent, environmentally polluting, ecological, unsound, lazy, careless, unimaginative child killers. And the author couldn't have put that any better. There are people think that we do all of this. They don't look at us as a professional manner, but I think personally, with a healthy turf, an irrigated turf that's putting the correct amount of water, doesn't waste it, it gives the turf, gives the plant materials exactly the amount of water that it needs, will take this carbon monoxide stuff out of the environment and actually clean our air. They look at it totally wrong. They think we're putting all these chemicals out, and they're not paying attention to the guys out there that are doing the IPM programs and having that as part of their business. They really look at us this way, and it's up to us to change the image that the landscape industry has developed. Labor is the largest expense for landscape companies, will be and always will be. There's always going to be a shortage of labor, and it's the nature of the business, guys, because when the spring rush gets here, we may need 20 employees. Through the summer, we may have to drop down to 15 because the grass isn't growing as fast. And then in the fall, we might need 20 again because we're plugging in seed and we're doing new planting jobs. Then all of a sudden, the winter comes and we don't need one employee. So it's hard to maintain, it's hard to hire and retain these good employees through the winter just by the nature of the business. So that's the one thing that we have to deal with that most industries don't have to. With shortage of labor, you can use H-2B, which is a program where immigrants are allowed to come in and actually work for your landscape business. They're here just for a period of time during the year, the busy time. So they probably arrive late February, early March, and they'll work through October, November, and then they go home back to their native country for the rest of the year. But H-2B is for the B is for business, and then the H-2A is for agriculture. And a lot of farmers and nurserymen are able to use the H-2A program for their labor. One of our graduates runs a strawberry farm. They have H-2A workers. The only thing they have to do is they have to provide them with transportation and a place to stay. So they have a mobile home on their farm, and then they provide them with a van to get back and forth to the grocery store and stuff. But it works out good for these guys. The same guys come back every year after year. Same crew leader with his same crew, and they work the time of the strawberry season. They go home, and then they come back the following year. And again, a big thing with our Hispanic population is that they're either in construction or landscape services, and it's our biggest area that we recruit people. These guys, they enjoy the work, and they've been a good help to a lot of landscape companies. The number of graduates that are graduating from 2 and 4 year college is increasing. The wages and benefits are increasing to attract these employees, especially with the larger companies. Another thing, us as landscapers, we do have to compete with the construction industry, and that's kind of a, when housing's strong, it also means it's good, strong for us. But a lot of these guys will actually go and work for construction because the wages may be just a little bit better for a framer versus a guy running a mower. But we're always going to compete with construction for employees. And then the South and the West account for a larger number of the Hispanic workers. Just for transportation alone, the guys are able to populate there a little easier. They're able to get there. The economy, we're always having to deal with economy. Fuel is a big thing. It's probably our next biggest expense versus labor. Now gas is priced, $2.30 average, $2.20 somewhere. That's good. It's good for the landscape manager, the landscape management company. Think about if you had 100 vehicles that leave out every day and burn a tank of gas, and then all the mowers on the trailers. If that fuel jumped back up to over $3, that's going to hurt the pocketbook. Wars, we've been at war for the last 12 years in Afghanistan and Iraq. It causes oil to go up and down, which again causes gas to go up and down. And then housing. In 2009 we had the decline of the housing market. And usually with landscaping, we're on an 8 to 9 month delay behind the construction industry. So if construction's going good now, we've got 8 or 9 months of good work ahead of us. But when construction stops, we've only got about 8 or 9 months worth of landscape work that's going to follow the construction industry. Water, fresh water that's used annually. Golf courses use 1.5% of the water, fresh water that we consume. Landscapes use about 2.9. So really, still less than 5% is used for the green industry. But irrigation components and systems generate $800 million worth of revenue annually. That's a big number right there. And now what we're trying to do is implement wastewater for non-food land. I know the town of Cary has a system in place The pipes are pink, so if you see pink pipe, it's wastewater. It's treated wastewater. What it is, they're collecting all the wastewater and they're treating it, and then they're pumping it back out for irrigation. Reduce costs to the homeowners. A lot less expensive, and they're using water that they couldn't use for anything else, but they're putting it back on turf and plants. You wouldn't be able to use it for gardens or anything like that. It strictly has to be for non-food areas. But town of Cary is leading the way with that in North Carolina. Professionalism, two of our biggest things. Guys, we have to market ourselves, and we have to market ourselves as professionals. And it's kind of hard to do. We're out working, we're getting hot, sweaty, and nasty. I always tell my students, keep a clean shirt in the truck. Something that you can change. If you've got to go do an estimate or meet with a client, you don't want to go too nasty and dirty. So keep a clean shirt. Keep your trucks clean. That is the biggest thing. You don't want to open your truck in somebody's yard and all these soda cans and bottles fall out. And don't smoke on a client's property. That is the one thing that really bothered me with our employees, is they get out and they flick the cigarette butt out in the client's yard that they're getting ready to take care of. That is so unprofessional. Keep your trucks logoed. Keep them clean. Make sure that truck states your company's name on it. And then sustainable practices. Again, my opinion, we've always been sustainable, but it's not a bad thing to advertise that to your clients. Business, good horticulturists must become good business people. The seasonal nature of our business, under capitalization, not having enough money, making sure we meet profit, people, capital management, and business failure cannot be ignored. It's just our industry, guy. You work hard 9 months out of the year, and you have to take 3 months off, and you hope you made enough to make it through the winter. The landscape management industry as a whole, there's roughly between 50 to 145,000 companies. I don't think they truly know. A lot of these guys aren't doing tax returns with their business, but generally we have a combined revenue between 40 and 60 billion annually. And it's an industry of small companies. There's a lot of 1 and 2 man crews. And there's a lot of just 1 man operators. The guy has 50 yards, he mows them 10 a day, and he's making good money. But most of these companies they generate less than $200,000 in revenue. But don't let that scare you. I would much rather make 30% profit off of 200,000 than to make 1% off of like gross sales of $1 million. So just think about that, guys. There's nothing wrong with staying small and growing the wallet. Most have 1 to 3 employees year round, and the larger companies hold 15% of the market. So remember that chart I showed you of income? Those larger companies only hold 15% of the market. The rest of the 85% is taken up by small mom and pop companies. Residential is our bread and butter of the industry, and that's who I want to work for. I'd much rather have 500 lawns to mow or 500 lawns to fertilize than to have to deal with the commercial side. My personal preference, and it is our bread and butter. More companies take care of residential properties as their main focus than commercial. And focusing on a specialty, guys, is a good thing to do. Like I said, I would either start out just mow, blow, and go, then add on services, or start out with turf applications, fertility apps, and then work my way into something else. Become specialized in one thing and know that segment of our industry inside and out. Education, 4-year universities offer landscape degrees, but haven't increased in the past 20 years. It's the same state agricultural schools that provide this training, but there's numerous 1 and 2 year programs offered nationally, and I think we're going to see that continue to grow. And good quote from the book, if you make a horticulture mistake, you lose the crop. If you make a business mistake, you lose the farm. And that is so true in the horticulture, in the business, landscape management business as well. You make a small scientific mistake. You might lose the crop, you might lose a tree, you might lose a shrub. But if you make a business mistake, you could lose your whole business. Employment opportunities, I think it's going to continue to grow. There's going to be these larger companies are going to keep getting larger, and they're going to be looking for skilled labor, and they're going to be looking for managers with horticulture degrees as well. Some student examples. A lot of our students don't go the self-employment route. We have students down at the Botanical Gardens in Kernersville. We have our graduates working in the high school, going on to get their Bachelor of Science at A&T, and are teaching high school agriculture at the high school level. We have students employed working for Vice President Biden as a grounds manager at the naval base there in Maryland. We have an employee working for Renota Gardens. We have graduates working at Old Salem. So a lot of employment opportunities for the local area, guys. So get this horticulture degree. There's all kinds of opportunities for you. Keeping up. We do need to keep up with the industry. We need to have Con Ed. We need to keep going to seminars and training, just like we just had at the Green and Grow Show. Keep a self-library. One of my professors at A&T, he has every magazine subscription of Landscape Architecture magazine. He has just a wall full of it, and he knows he keeps it for references. So keep your trade magazines that come. Keep a good library of this stuff. A lot of it can be saved in digital formats, so you don't have to take up wall space, but you can save it to thumb drives and have access to all this information. Professional associations. Become a member of the North Carolina Nursery and Landscape Association. Become a member of the American Society of Landscape Architects if you go that route. These professional associations can keep you update and give you discounted prices on Con Ed, and it's good just to network with other professionals, not only local professionals, but guys in different states. You can learn a lot from other companies by just going to these meetings. And that will wrap up Chapter 1. If you have any questions, guys, office hours Monday through Friday, 8 to 9, and I do hold the online office hour for HOR 116-800, the online office hour. Thanks, and I will see you guys in the next lecture.